When you're staging your shot, like I said, think of it like a comic strip, like just the bare bones of the shot. And we'll look at the shot real quick. We saw this before, I know, but just to kind of like, revisit it. All right, so what's the staging? Staging is, character is sleeping, character wakes up, character runs away from, character wakes up, sees the alien, runs away, gets to the edge, and then flies out the window, flies out the door, airlock, and then is dead, floating in space. It's like really simple, 6 storytelling poses that tell the whole story. And it's like, oh yeah, huh? It is pretty quick, but I mean that's where you could start, right? And there's a lot more. There's more to fill in. It's like a painter kind of blocking in like the ground, the ground in the sky, mountain roughly here, maybe a tree is a line, just big paint strokes right now, right? And then you could say the story beats. So staging is just kind of setting up your scene, making sure the camera works, is in the right place, and telling the story very quickly. Staging could just be one shot, really. Staging could just be like one characters here, and the camera, and if there's like dialogue, it's like that's all it is, right? And then the story beats just like telling a bit more, right? Telling like what happened within that. You have character sleeping, wakes up, then notices alien and reacts, then tries to fight the alien, and then decides to run, and runs across screen, camera pans, gets to the wall, then has to hit the button, the door, and then the door opens. He hasn't get sucked out yet. Door opens, and then he gets sucked out. And then there's a story beat where he holds onto the door, and then he gets sucked out, and then the door closes. He exits frame, the door closes, and then we see him floating through space, and then he exits frame completely as we just imagine he's floating now forever. So yeah, just real quick, let's take another look at the shot and just kind of think of that. So character sleeping, waking up, noticing alien, freaking out, trying to fight the alien, decides to run instead, hits the wall, looking for a way out, hits the button, door opens. Do you see that? Like how clear everything is? And you may not have the time for this amount of clarity. You might have to combine beats. Like there's a beat of him moving to the side, he stops, he starts to move again, hits the button, and there's even like a reaction. He's like he hits the button, is like, whoop, and then looks over. Notice the door hasn't moved yet. So he's like, moving over, stops, hits the button, and reacts to what did I just hit? Then he looks over, and then the door opens. So these are like separated beats, because it could have happened all in once. He could have moved over, hit the button, and then the door opened immediately. Then he look over like, ah! And then get sucked out. But the comedy is like stretched a bit. So it's like click, like what was that? Then looking over, and then the door opens, looks away with in terror, and then gets sucked out. And it's one last little attempt to save himself, and then fully sucked out. Oh, I love that the door closes, and there's nothing. Door closes for a quarter beat or something, and then you see him floating. Like it could have been even longer. The door could have closed, and you see nothing for a while, and then he starts floating. So now acting beats gets even more granular and more detailed, right? So the setup is like one day a character was sleeping, and he, then he tossed to his side, and trying to get comfortable, and then reacts, realizing something's wrong, and then there's an action. He lifts up. The scene cuts on that action. If you ever have a cut, you cut on the action. It just helps. It helps connect the ideas without the audience really thinking about it. see like he moves, and the movement is connected. And also, like if your eye is like your eyes are following his eyes, his face, you tend to look at faces. So your viewer, where you're viewing the screen is here on his face, and then when we cut, it's close to here, but I guess it ends here too. So it's really close to where he's going to be. So it just helps bridge the motion, which is the way to do it. And he's kind of this confused look on his face, and those eye darts really help sell the character thinking. So he looks over at the alien, notices there needs to be time for him to register, what he's looking at in his brain. So he looks over at the alien and then reacts. It doesn't happen immediately. He doesn't look at the alien and go, ah! He's like, looks at the alien, and there's like a beat of like not reacting, and then he reacts. So it's like maybe like a half beat. And it feels right, for the amount of time, and then how cartoony we get with the speed of the movements. And another thing is, if you're going to do something cartoony, it's good to establish that early. If everything feels really very realistic, and then like towards the end you do something cartoony, it's going to look weird. Like you want to establish the rules of the world, or like the style of the world, like pretty early on. But actually here, this movement here is pretty quick. That to me feels more cartoony. It's within the first like 4 or 5 seconds. In all this, it's very cartoony. So it's, establishing, oh, okay, this character moves this way. And so notices, freaks out. There's like this freak out away. I should say that there's a reaction. A reaction is a beat. So I'm just going to go back to the slides. So character set up sleeping. So one day a character was sleeping. Then these beats are like react. Action is like thinking, and seeing the alien, and then reaction to the alien. So these are beats to add to your shots. Like if your character does not think through your shot the entire time, it can be boring. It's a missed opportunity. The difference between student animation and professional animation is that professionals are trying to make the character feel like they're alive, thinking and having reactions to things, like reacting to your environment or whatever. Action is action beat, falls off. That's like I'd say that's one beat of like the action of the, acting beat. Then there's a quick beat of nothing. It's very quick. Let's see, falls off the edge, like his legs, and then there's like nothing. You see hair come up, but I would do nothing. I would have him fall off and have nothing. I would even hide his like feet if this were my shot, just because it feels like he, like where did he go, kind of, and to hold that for like, I mean, it looks like he's kind of off the table. Let's say 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Okay, that's like maybe like 6 frames or so, and then pops up. Just very quick beat that he's off, and then pops up. And notice he does more thinking. He's like, doesn't just get into this, but you see his eyes dart that way, then they dart back, and there's a change. He doesn't just go back into the same pose here. He looks to the right, and then when he comes back to this pose, he changes a bit. So it's not just like doing this in the same pose. He's like coming up into a slightly different pose, which is, in animation, change is important, not repeating poses. It is something to aim for, to keep going for a change in your animation, change of poses. There's a little bit of a head thing he does where, he's looking at the alien, he's like, ah, like it's a little bit of an antic, like it starts with the brows and then the mouth and the head. And notice like the rest of the body is pretty still, which is very super cartoony. If this is more naturalistic, I would start doing something with the arms too. I mean, even cartoony animation could do that too. Like the head can move, but then the arms could drop a little bit, and then, kind of antic the opposite way that it's going to go before he throws his arms up. So his arms kind of come up as a little bit of an antic before, and then comes up over and does this really wacky run, and already starts turning the character this way, and then slams him up against the wall. And there's even that bounce. They bounce kind of off. Well, actually, it looks like they hold it for 2 frames. There's like a little bit of movement on the hair and maybe the head here, and I guess this leg kind of continuing to move. But you holding that pose a little bit, for 2 frames helps it read more. And then they bounce off and then hit the wall again. But you don't even see it. It's so quick. Also, the camera movement hides it too. But it almost like sticks for 1 frame. That bounce. It doesn't just like hit and bounce off. It like hits in for 2 frames, so you read it, and then he bounces off. Bounce, hold 2. That's the second. That's the second frame. Then he bounces off, and then he's against the wall again. Anyways, we'll go back to here. So quick beat of nothing comes up. This is like a reaction, and then there's a hold. Quick, and then slow. But your beats are fast, medium, and slow. Having a variety of those helps add texture to your shot.